Hello, my name is Roman Dzindzihashvili, and I'm very excited to present you probably one of the most original and unusual DVD that I have ever produced. This DVD is partially about the opening repertoire that I recommend for several years already, but what's original about it is how we can rewrite modern opening theory, as well as how we rewrite modern understanding of material advantage versus positional pressure. So I'm going to introduce a number of absolutely unique positions that should be very instructive for you and also should be very, very unpleasant for your opponent. Of course, just knowing the theory of the continuations I will recommend is not enough, but if you understand it deeply, what compensation for sacrificed material or what is the original, what is the unusual strategy we're gonna use in these suggestions, this is gonna be very dangerous weapon in your hands you're going to have. So let's start. E4, C5. Well, I recommended for a number of years already, I recommend Grand Prix, which goes F4, G6, Knight F3, Bishop G7, and Bishop B5. But lately, I have to tell you this. On Knight C3, more and more frequently, Black plays E6. And E6 is played for several different reasons. Here are the reasons. First of all, when we play Knight C3, Black doesn't know whether we want to play just a regular Sicilian, maybe next move Knight F3, or we want to play close Sicilian, or we want to play Grand Prix. So E6 is kind of closes the book on close Sicilian, because if we go G3 and D5, we're going to get position that is approximately equal without getting regular close Sicilian. So also E6 with the idea on F4 to play A6 used frequently. And finally, just someone who wants to play a regular pulses system for Black, or Taimanov system. They all start like this with those moves. So what do? Very frequently I play Knight F3 in this move. It's not because F4 is not good for white. No, it's just another page because I always like to play against Paulsen's system with white. And secondly, D5 is not a good move in this position. It's known because white simply goes D4. And we are not going to get, in details analyzing this position. This position is known in theory, it's known as bad, and it is bad. So, when we play Knight F3, we expect A6 move, which is the logical continuation after E6, And there is also a possibility of going d6. Well, but it's especially useful for people who play regular Sicilian, normal open Sicilian. For example, if you go e4, c5, knight f3, e6, you can go knight c3, and you expect normally a6. So there's a good chance that if on a second move black played e6, on knight f3, third move will be a6. And then I want to recommend one particular variation of Paulsen system. Before we go in there, I have to tell you that if we go d4, black may take and go knight c6, or even d6, try to reroute to possibly Najdorf variation after knight f6, or bishop e7 they can play, or knight c6 they can play. So there is a good chance this may happen. So we could go g3 here. Now after g3 or d4, actually one move is followed by another. It's up to you to pick the move order, because if you don't mind playing some Scheveningen positions after bishop e2, knight f6, classical positions, you do that. And if you try to avoid it, you can go g3 here. And when black plays most expected b5 move, then you can go d4, cd, knight d4. So let's start real analysis of this position. You're going to see something highly controversial and highly unorthodox position with unbalanced material and very sophisticated understanding of initiative, powered by Rybka and countless hours of analysis. You may think that if Rybka analyzed for several hours, how can you be able to follow this analysis? No, this is easy, because what Rybka analyzed, she was shuffling between different possibilities for one another. But when she came to conclusion, the conclusion is very easy to understand, and it's kind of very exciting. I was very excited. I've been on the scene of chess chessing for 50 years, and I was absolutely amazed. So now, after bishop b7, we go bishop g2. Black will most probably play knight f6, and we castle. Now there is a good opportunity for black to go b4, looking for pawn on e4, and it looks like very good idea for black. Why shouldn't they do that? And here we come knight d5, pawn takes d5, and pawn takes d5. I put this position on various different engines, and Rybka came with very moderate evaluation, which is small, actually not small, but 0.35 advantage for black. So in other words, Rybka says that big piece down for a pawn, white has initiative, but not sufficient. But then I kept analyzing it with Rivka, which means I was giving her assignment, and she was going on, and results were absolutely amazing. The best move, Bishop c5. Obviously, not d6, because after rook e1 check, forced to play king d7, because bishop e7 will be met by knight f5. And after king d7, bishop g5, with the idea of bishop h3 check, and followed by knight c6, this position is absolutely lost for black. So let's go to the best move. Bishop c5 check, knight to b3, attacking bishop. Now, the only move in this position, only sensible move for black is d6. The reason why, because bishop e7 is bad because of d6, and white gets its piece back. They can take on e7, or even on g2, followed by rook e1 check. This is not possible. So we're going to cut here. So another option besides d6 is simply bishop b6, which is not good either, because queen e1 check, attacking b4 pawn, king must move. Queen e7 is not acceptable because white gets huge advantage after queen takes e7, followed by d6, or even better, d6 right away, getting the piece back and having winning position. Now, that leaves black with only one option, d6, and this is the position, the pilot position, which I want to discuss with you. But before starting with this position, I want to attract your attention to any other move in this video. A move like bishop e7 would be followed by d6. So I want to make sure you see that black has no other option. So bishop c5, knight b3, and d6. The first thing we have to do, we have to make sure black will not castle. We cannot let black castle after giving a piece. So king f8, knight takes c5, d takes c, and this is the key position. The move that is absolutely amazing, it's not the amazing move, it's amazing evaluation of this position, is c4. You may ask, how can white afford to make such a quiet move being a piece down? Well, I was very skeptical, and then the more I looked, the more I realized, and Rivka said white is doing okay after very extended analysis overnight, and I started understanding the position. This is truly amazing position. Now, b takes c is very bad choice for black. Well, if b takes c, we just simply take b takes c, and you see taking on d5 is not a good idea, because we can simply go c4, or if bishop takes on d5, I don't know, we can go rook e5, pin, and win the piece back, having decisive advantage. Otherwise, for example, if black goes h6, trying to escape with the king on h7, then after rook b1, it's unclear what can be done about the bishop on b7. If bishop goes back, then d6 will be very strong, attacking rook, and if rook moves, the knight is hanging, and if queen c8, then queen b3 is very powerful, again attacking the bishop and pinning all pieces on the diagonal on b vertical, and then playing bishop e3 or bishop f4. This is simply a hopeless position for black. So now we came to conclusion that taking en passant on c3 is a bad idea. And the best move for black, I found, is knight d7. Then we play a3. And here, black has to go a5. Why does black have to do that? Because if they don't go e5, what is going to happen? For example, ba, rook takes a3, and now somehow black tries to escape with the king on h7. Then simply, we can play simply rook b3, or which may be even better, bishop d2, just to show you the power of this position. After king g8, we can go bishop a5, and after queen c8, rook a to e3. This is the position, rook a to e3, or maybe even bishop h3. So this is position, believe me, you don't want to get in your tournament game. Either rook e7, attacking f7, or simply playing rook a to e3. With a piece down, black is totally lost because none of its pieces can be really moved, and it's a unique position with decisive advantage for white. So this is totally unacceptable for black. So that's why taking on a3 is a real bad idea. So after a3, on the other hand, if black tries to get out with a king immediately, just ignoring white after a3, then after white takes on b4 and goes queen a4, attacking another pawn, with a great potential of, after bishop e3, to go c5 at some point. By the time black saves its king on h7, white is going to have overwhelming advance of c and d pawn, and position is totally lost. Again, I think it would be a waste of time to go try to prove it. Try to play this position itself. You will see how bad it is for black. Or try, actually, this position is so bad, you don't need to use Rivka. You can use any engine, any computer engine, even on the level of 14, 13, 1500. They will prove it, how bad it is for black. So I don't want to waste your time, and let's get to the a5 move. This is the main move. Now, after a5, white goes queen a4, and this is truly amazing move. What can queen do on a4? White has no threats, and black has an extra piece. How can this be good for white? It is good. Well, the best move is h6. With the obvious idea, black cannot play this position without safeguarding its king on a h7 or g7 and taking h rook out. So h6. Now we go b3, preparing for bishop to go on b2. After king g8, here we start active operations. Queen b5, attacking the bishop. And now black has two moves, bishop a6 or queen b6. Let's look at queen b6 for now. What do we do on queen b6? Here you see how deep the evaluation of this position, that with a piece down you can afford exchange queens. Go rook e7. This position is already very bad for black. Knight fd7, bishop h3. Moves I'm making were carefully examined, and they are by far the best move for both sides. Now, rook d8 is not a good idea because white has simply rook a7 in this position, and it's tremendous initiative here. So black plays king f8. And now look at this position. This position is a very bad position for black. Why? White has only one pawn for exchange, and we are in the end game. But in reality, this is not an end game. Black has multiple weaknesses. Possibility of taking AB and coming in on A file for white rook if black rook moves out of A8, and also terrible weakness on C5, great pass pawn on D5, and pair of very active bishops. Let's see how does it look in reality. What can happen in this position? On king e7, we have to retreat. Bishop b5, rook h to c8, rook a2, and now black wants to exchange the bishops. Rook e2 check, and after king f8, bishop a4, with a big advantage for white, and it is indeed big advantage. White doesn't want to take on b4 yet. White is not in a rush. So they want to make sure this pawn on c5 remains, and black looks like throughout whole game has to watch for this pawn not to lose it. And also they have to watch for a white d pawn, because it may become very dangerous. Meanwhile, black cannot contest white on e file because of the bishop on a4, and black has terrible bishop on b7. And what white would do next move, for example on rook a7, they may take, we can go bishop c6 followed by bishop e3 maybe. Bishop e3 will be very dangerous because then they're going to lose the pawn. So position is, even on rook e7, bishop e3. Now you can go rook a6, rook a2, and get out of the pin. Meanwhile, you're threatening bishop takes c5. So I just gave you the sketchy understanding of this position, sketchy explanation. And position is real bad for black. Now let's go to different move. We said there are two moves, queen b6 and bishop a6. So we looked at queen b6. Now let's see what's approximately going to happen after bishop a6. Now we go queen c6, and what can black do? So what are the black's choices in this position? To get out with a king h7, and this is most probably, I would say most surely, the best move, because we have to understand this position well. White has deadly threat, pawn takes pawn. King h7, it looks like it does not help this threat, because when pawn takes, if c pawn takes, then white activates eventually this c and d pawns and going to have very dangerous initiative. But the problem of a b move, which is not a good move, black has very powerful queen b8 move with a threat of rook to c8, trapping white's queen, and black has an advantage. So choices are king h7, which is the best move, queen c8. Queen c8 simply bad because pawn takes pawn, and right now black is in totally lost position. You cannot take the queen because of dc. You cannot take on b4 with a pawn because queen takes c8, winning material, and you most probably you don't have any good move. C takes b, rook takes a5, and white is totally winning. So that leaves us with, on the rook a7 also the same, a takes b, c takes b, and after bishop e3, black is in very bad shape. So that leaves practically one move that makes sense, king h7. And now we go bishop b2. What can black do here? After bishop b2, black has an extra piece. They safeguarded their king, but they still have serious problems. One of the options is b takes a, and it's very, very hard to suggest any other move. On queen b8, for example, if black goes queen b8 instead of, then bishop takes f6, and after knight takes f6, simply d6, and after rook a7, queen takes c5, another pawn is hanging, very powerful d pawn, and after queen d4, we can move c5. White has very dangerous initiative, and according to Rico, white is easily winning. So b takes a is by far the best choice. But after b takes a, we play bishop takes f6. Black must retake with the knight. Now white has very strong d6 move, or which is just as strong queen takes c5. And we get quite position. You know, you have no problem taking on a3 next move, and then you're most probably going to win the a pawn, the other a pawn on a5, and that will give white very powerful pawn chain. They're going to have sufficient material compensation for a knight, for a sacrificed piece, and based on Ripke's analysis, white is better in this position. So this is interesting. So now I want to show you something here. I want to summarize to what I said, and it's amazing that this position after a3, a5, and queen a4 is better for white. Well, at least it's not better for black. White is a piece down, and let me tell you something. I find it nearly impossible for any human being, and I'm not talking about chess, good or bad chess player, any chess player at all, the best ever, to play this position correctly for black. And white has very clearly outlined plan to develop the bishop, double rooks, and play for black's weaknesses. And on h6, which is the only sensible move in this position, that's the only way black can bring the king to h7, and bringing black's king to any other square on g7 is impossible because of a check, and white will simply double rooks, creating the murderous initiative. So, which means h6 is the only move. And that's how you bring this absolutely quiet position well, actually you go b3 here, absolutely quiet position to very powerful initiative. And total evaluation is very close. I will be skeptical, I will be conservative, very close to some advantage for white, and by no means black can get any advantage. So white is most probably better. I would be very optimistic if I had this position in important game based on the analysis I just provided to you. So this is first position, and I would say amazing position. In evaluation, if you gave it to any strong chess player without him ever seeing this position, without a doubt, the conclusion will be, this is laughable that white can have compensation, but it's not. It's very, very serious. Now, I want to tell you something, how opening preparation or endorsing certain opening, how does it go? You look at certain variations, and you like them very much. You have good positional idea, everything is working out perfectly, but then some variation that your opponent may choose, or it's known in theory, kind of ruins your plan. So shows that you don't have an advantage. If black or your opponent doesn't follow all the well-known theoretical moves, but play second different line, we never have an advantage. And this is kind of frustrating. That's what was happening with me when I was, for a number of years, I was and I am recommending the Scotch Gambit position, ed bishop c4, knight f6, e5, d5, bishop b5, knight e4. I was always recommending, and I show this is very useful position for player with white to learn. Useful because there's a lot of strategy involved, tactics involved, and you really learn chess playing this variation. But here, continuation knight g4. That is also known in theory as a very playable and okay for black. And for a number of years, I wouldn't recommend anything than main move queen e2, and I was not too happy with results, not too happy, not in terms that we get bad position. No, I was searching for advantage, and I couldn't get. There is a queen e7 attacking e5 pawn, now bishop f4. Now all white wants to play h3 and chase knight to h6 and then double black's pawns on h5. And black has here two moves, f6 and d6. I don't want to go through this now because I'll tell you, in both cases, I always had severe problems getting advantage for white. And I was kind of disappointed. Now, I'm going to try to rewrite the theory. After knight g4, there is no other move was acceptable for white. Queen e2 was the only move to stop d6. D6 freeing, black's bishop on c8, because then we take with the check. But that's why black was doing bishop queen e7. So, but now we castle. This move is known in a theory, and it's known that you cannot take on e5 because white very simply wins a piece. Well, this is known too. That's not what we discovered. We discovered is that the best move considered here is bishop e7 and also possible d6, and we are allowing this. Now let's see what is going to happen and why theory denounces this continuation for white. Well, if d6 after castling, if d6, e takes d, queen takes d6. Now, this, what black needs to do, just to go bishop e7 and castle. White didn't even get its pawn back. Now, what do we have here for a pawn? And that's where Rybka is very good. Actually, she is good in a lot of different positions as well, but in this position, after queen takes d6, knight a3. Simply threat. Now, regular development, normal development will face some problem. Queen is hanging and now bishop f4, and you see black is having serious problem. So, after knight a3, normal reaction, and the best move is a6. Then we go h3. And what are we accomplishing in trying this knight to go to better position? Knight f6. But here we go knight g5, attacking f7, and after knight d8, which is the only reasonable way to protect it, bishop e6 cannot be recommended because after simple rook e1, you see white has great position. After knight d8, we go rook e1 check, and after knight e6, very strong move, bishop b3. You see now you have a terrible threat of knight c4 followed by knight e5. Knight c4 is coming, and it's very, very difficult for black to overcome these threats. So this position of b5 is bad because of queen f3, followed by attacking rook and followed by bishop f4. White has tremendous initiative. So based on that, I want to tell you this, that d6 move is not the great move. And again, I'm going again through this, e takes d, queen takes d6, rook e1 check, no rook e1 check, but knight a3, threatening knight b5, and bishop f4, and on a6, we go h3, and knight g5. Now, this is good for white. Actually, for some reason, we kept in dark about those possibilities. Now, after castling, black may play bishop e7 first. So white cannot go h3 because now black can simply capture on e5. But what is happening after bishop e7? Now you're going to see very, very interesting position. On bishop e7, rook e1, reinstating h3 threat. For example, if white castles, then h3, after knight h6. No one wants to play this position for black. Black now goes d6. And this is the main reason why this position is not recommended to play for white. E takes d, queen takes d6, we go h3, and after knight f6, c3. Now this is a truly unusual way to play for white. Now after c3, I have to point here, this is one move, c3, that leads to approximate equality, and I already liked it if we can get little different playable position, different from simplifying, or where black has no advantage. I would accept it. I wouldn't be very happy, but I would accept it. First, I looked at c3. What can happen after c3? D takes c. If d takes c, then queen takes d6, cd, knight takes c3, and if castle, then bishop f4, and rook a d1. Now, this is good enough for at least equality. And I was kind of satisfied with it. But then, Ripka came with a truly amazing discovery here. She gets an advantage. White has an advantage in this position after white b3 move. Now, if castle, bishop a3, queen d8, bishop takes c7, knight takes c7, and now possible c3, possible c3. c3 is the one move that white may play here, and after c takes d, they will have good position. And the other move is simply queen takes d4. What I can say about queen takes d4, when black takes, knight takes, is this an equal position? No, it's not. Because on knight f5, which looks like equal, we go knight f3. Now that makes development of this bishop a little difficult, and after bishop d7, knight c3. And you know what? It's not easy to equalize here for black. Now, as something like bishop c6, there's knight e5 possibility. Bishop on c6 is hanging in a way that is going to ruin black's pawn structure. Also, f7 has to be watched for. So white has some advantage. I'm not going to tell you it's decisive advantage, but white clearly has an advantage. Now, what is the other possibility? Is there anywhere black can improve? Well, let's look at it. After b3, what can be done about bishop a3 move? Nothing like a5 is going to work well, because now knight b4, we're going to get this pawn back, and later we're going to go c3. I want you to notice that taking on c2 is never an option in these positions. So on knight takes c2 here, bishop takes d6, simply wins the game. So you cannot do that. And so there is no good way of stopping bishop a3. And after castle, we go bishop a3. It's very simple and very clear that white gets some advantage. Queen takes d4, knight takes d4, and on knight f5, there is possibility of knight b5 also, but I like Ripka's knight f3 move. This is very strong move, preparing possibility of going to e5 and attacking weaknesses, and also keeping black's knight on f5, which blocks the bishop on c8. On something like knight d6, we could go bishop d3, and still after knight c3, even this position is with some advantage for white. Well, the possibility of rook e7, maybe bishop takes, and knight c3, tiny advantage, but it's advantage for white. So this is another thing. Now we are rewriting well-established theoretical continuation, which is queen e2 was known as the only playable move, and after which queen e7, and black is doing very well. So we're playing castle, and we are ready for both d6 moves, after which we take, queen takes, and we go knight a3, and the second continuation is bishop e7. Then we can go rook e1, and after d6, pawn, queen, and now b3. Well, this is something new in today's theory, and it's very playable, and it's very useful to have it in your opening arsenal. Well, if this happens, at least you know what you're going to do. Though we don't go b3 in this position, we go h3 first. We go h3 first, knight f6, and then b3, followed by bishop a3. So that's another interesting interesting way to diversify a well-known opening theory. For years already, I was advocating always to play accelerated Draken. I went through enormous search. I was changing and updating my researches, and Ripka, of course, as always, I had a great help from her. And now, as my passion analyzing all the different opening possibilities, I think I mentioned it before, and I want to mention it once more, that accelerated Draken is on the list of the top choices for white against e4. Well, Sicilian is the top choice, and in Sicilian, accelerated Draken on the same level as Najdorf, maybe even higher rated for black, according to Ripka's analysis. And what is interesting, that the more I analyze, the more I come up with newer ideas with the black, and supported and refined with Ripka together. They represent very, very credible and valuable options for black. Now, I want to look at one of them, and it's very, very interesting in my opinion. e4, c5, knight f3, g6, d4, cd, knight takes d4, knight c6, knight c3, bishop g7. Now, the main move in this position is bishop e3. But often, white, I think it's one of the most popular continuations today for white to play against accelerated. Often, white plays knight b3, knight f6, bishop e2, castle, castle, and after d6, bishop g5. Now, or even rook e1. With a very interesting game, it's a quiet game. White may have slight advantage and may not. Now, of course, here, after knight b3, main move is knight f6. But here is one new idea. This has never been played on a reasonable level, never been tried, because of the general principles that you don't give dark square bishop in early stage of the game when it's fianchetto bishop, because it weakens dark squares. But let's look at this idea. Bishop takes c3, pawn takes, and knight f6. Now, black gave dark square bishop, and they gained control in the center, because knight on c3 was kind of protecting e4 pawn and also controlling d5. Now, white doesn't have it, and white has pawn hanging, which requires bishop d3 move. Now, let's talk about this position. Of course, castling may seem a little dangerous because white is going to castle, and they have later, after bishop h6, they have some good attacking possibilities. Actually, when I gave Ripka this position for analysis, she recommends castling here and then going d6. I don't like it, and this is not really a good position to trust Ripka's evaluation. So I added a little bit of my own idea and let Ripka develop it. So the move is d5. Now, if you pay attention, once white played knight b3, this is forced, that position after d5, because we take and we attack. There is no reasonable way of defending e4 pawn. f3 is even worse because of d5. So bishop d3 is very normal and most expected move, and after which we play d5. And this position, and I carefully analyzed with Ripka, this is something new, and as I already mentioned, has never been tried. Well, on a reasonable level, never been tried. There is no position after 6 or 7 moves in chess theory that anyone can ever say, oh, this was never been played. Everything was played, but it depends on what level, and with what result. So d5 has never been tried. Let's look at it. White's response is nearly forced. They have to take on d5 since there is no good way of protecting e-pawn, and e-pawn cannot move because black simply takes. So after e takes d, we go queen takes d5. Castle has to be played, castling. And here we have two choices. We have castling, and we have bishop e6. I want to tell you this. They are both very playable for black, and white does not have nearly as big of an advantage as they get in other, just the regular opening. So let's look at it. Bishop e6 is one, and what can white do here? They can go queen e2, they can go rook e1, and probably most natural is bishop h6. On bishop h6, we have several ways we can play. Well, rook e1 is another option. On bishop h6, we can go rook g8 as an option 1. And after c4, queen h5, queen takes h5, and now we should take with a pawn, because taking with a knight gives white too much of a pressure on our queen side. b6 will be met with bishop e4. So if we do that, we have to take with a pawn, and according to Ripka, it's very interesting, this position is almost equal. And I agree with that, because actually Ripka gives tiny advantage to white and little by little disadvantage disappears. Well, we both sides have double pawns, and white has two bishops, but black has possibility of counterplay on the king side, plus knight e5, playing on against the c pawn, maybe rook c8, also possible castling on the queen side. So according to Rybka, black is doing okay. This is option 1. So we went bishop e6. Now on bishop e6, here white can play rook e1 instead of bishop h6. So we went bishop e6, rook e1, and now it's black's move. So what we can do here, we can castle, bishop a3 for example, rook f2 d8, and again Rybka claims that black is doing fine, and I agree 100%. For example, if white attempts to play knight d4, knight takes d4, cd, queen takes d4, black is doing fine again. Maybe black is a little better here. According to Rybka, black is a little better here. So the only problem with black's position is weak dark squares. This is not the type of position where white can take advantage of them. So this is okay for black. Well, let's see what else can white do. Well, as an additional option, when white plays in this position bishop h6, we looked already at rook g8 move. But Rybka also suggests knight g4. Bishop will go to f4, and now knight g to e5. And after queen e2, knight takes d3, pawn takes d3, and this here simply castling, and black is doing absolutely okay here. So let's see what can happen here. Rybka recommends h3 here. She doesn't really want white to push the c pawn. Pushing d pawn is a big positional mistake because weakens light square, and pushing c pawn, queen f5, bishop g3, rook a to d8, black is probably better here. Little better, but black is better. Again, white came up empty. So then, if you go h3, then we can go rook a to d8, rook a d1, and simply b6. There is absolutely no advantage for white in this position. c4 will be met by queen f5, and on bishop h6, rook e8, and black is doing fine. White has badly placed knight and central pawns that they have to worry about. Is there mate on g7 square? Not even close. We have multiple ways to meet this only threat white can have for the rest of the game, probably, because black is doing very fine. Now, let's summarize this. Summarizing this, we can tell there is position that been played I don't know how many times, I don't know, in thousands, on any level, on top level, on high level, on medium level, move that never been tried. Idea that's never been tried. Normally when you double pawns and give your dark square bishop, you try to keep position closed. We have exactly opposite idea with which we're playing this. So bishop d3 and now d5 with a quick development and strong grip on the center. After ed, queen takes d5, castle, and now bishop e6. Even castling is okay for black in this position, but we don't need choices. We need to consider opponent's choices. But I can tell you that after bishop e6, white has no advantage. So this is another interesting opportunity for extremely flexible opening of accelerated drag. So this is something that I am proud to bring in life. This, well, of course, most of the pride should be given and credit should be given to Rybka, big part of it. But this is nevertheless very, very interesting, incredible opportunity for black. Now, I keep researching more and more in accelerated Draken, and that's how we came up with the previous position, previous option. But I would say that most expected move in this position, of course, not knight b3, although it becomes more and more popular lately, but bishop e3. On bishop e3 we go knight f6, and we are on the way to our main position, which is still considered as little better for white. d6, h3, bishop d7, f4. Now this is the most competitive way to play for white and the best attempt of getting some advantage. There's a lot of moves here. Rook a c8, queen h5, rook f e8, on knight takes d4 followed by bishop c6. All these options, but white somehow manages to get a little tiny edge. And here, breath of fresh air. Move that is not completely new, but it is completely new as far as the idea of this go. Now we make here, and I believe, and Rybka does too, that this is the most progressive way for black to play in this position. Not to play for equality like queen h5 move would, but go for the play, for counter chances, and go for advantage even. And the competitive move in this position, unlikely for Sicilian positions, rook a to d8. Now this is a little bit counterintuitive because this rook's supposed to be on c8. That's normally. On this rook may be on d8. But rook a to d8 has very, very good and interesting idea. Rook a to d8 Well, should you expect here? Normal and very typical for these types of position, Queen D3 move. Whoever more or less familiar with this position, they would not doubt Queen D3 move. And here we go Knight H5. Now you're going to see connection between the Rook on D8 and Knight on H5 move. Knight H5, here we have a threat. What threat do we have? For example, just to show you the threat, we make A3 move. And you will see what's going to happen after this. Knight takes, bishop takes, bishop takes, queen takes, and knight takes f4. And after rook takes f4, there is e5 move. And you see that this is a very interesting threat that may be possible also that black can play knight g3 at some point. So after knight h5, very logical move. After knight h5, knight d2 e2. Well, knight d5 move will not get white anywhere. Knight d5, rook fe8, for example, and rook a d1. All this is going to go back now. e6, knight c3, and if black plays here d5, they get very good position. ed, ed, and knight takes d5 will be met by knight takes d4, bishop takes d4, bishop b5, with big advantage for black, because on c4 there is rook takes d5. So knight d5 is counterintuitive move and obviously premature. So what is the normal move here? Knight d2 e2. And it's logical, it's covering the f4 square, covering the g3 square. And that's what theory recommends. But here comes the most interesting plan for black that has never been played and used. After knight d2 e2, knight b4. This is the kind of move looks like any beginner would make, any amateur would make. Maybe white leaves the queen on pre and we can take it. Well, it's a little bit of a joke there, but a little bit of the truth, because after queen d2, it's not clear why we attack the queen there, why we put our knight on b4. Here is why. Now we go knight a6. And you see all depth of this idea. What does black want here? Black wants to play knight c5, bishop c6, and knight f6 back if there is a need. After knight a6, white has to do something. And they can try so with bishop d4. Now, bishop d4 is the absolutely only active way for white to attempt to get some advantage. Bishop d4. What else is possible there? On rook d1, for example, we can go knight c5 or bishop c6 in any order. And now, finally, white has to do something. And on knight d5, for example, in this position, what can we do? Well, actually, in this position already, white could have played knight d5, which is not such a great idea, because we simply take the queen, and after knight takes e7, bishop takes d2, and if we play rook d to e8, you see that black is doing fine here. So let's go back to rook d1 move. Then we go knight c5, and knight d5 will be met the same way. Knight takes e7, king h8, rook takes d2, knight takes e4. Again, black is doing fine. So that tells us that white has to go for bishop d4. And indeed, it does look very good for white. Now we go e5. And that's another explanation why rook should be on d8. The bishop on d7 is defended. After e5, f takes e, d takes e. Now this position, white has to go for a pawn on a7. Now, if white doesn't, what can they do? If white plays, for example, bishop e3, black simply goes knight c5, having great position. So white has somehow to justify bishop d4. Bishop takes a7, and according to Rybka, it's by far the best choice for white. Now we go knight c5. b6 attempt is not good because of queen e7, and this is not a good position for white, for black. So we go knight c5. Bishop takes c5, queen takes c5 check, king h2, bishop takes h3. Black is doing very well. On bishop takes f7, king h8, and on queen g5, bishop c8. White does have an extra pawn, but white's king is compromised. Black has two bishops, and white's black squares are compromised. So after bishop c8, bishop b3, and knight f6, black is doing very, very fine. So as we mentioned already, here white must accept this pawn sec, and because black must go knight c5. And I want to mention that at b6, not queen e3, but winning move for white is queen d6, attacking b6 square, and black is material down with no compensation. So we play knight c5. Again, bishop takes c5. White has one more option that we should look. Here, after king h2, when we play bishop takes h3, queen g5, and we have to go bishop on queen, actually not queen g5, but bishop takes f7, king h8, queen g5, and on bishop c8. What if they go simply a3? And for a while it was giving some problems to black, and after a3, if we go knight f6, we have great position. It looks like blunder, but it isn't. After rook takes f6, queen e7, very strong move. Rook f5, well, rook takes g6 is weaker because queen takes f7. And after rook f5, queen takes g5, rook takes g5, rook takes f7. Position simplified, white still has an extra pawn, but black has big advantage. You see the possibilities of rook f2 and rook d2, terribly placed rook on g5, and activity of black bishops. I mean both bishops, including this bishop that at any point can go to h6. Well, in my opinion, this position is nearly winning for black, and Rivka is more conservative, but still gives big advantage to black. So this we agree on. And now let me again summarize what we just looked. So what we just saw is brand new idea of rook d8, and on queen d3, knight h5. It's very difficult for someone who will see it for the first time if you gave it to a strong player and tell them black played rook d8 and knight h5. I would say we are dealing with a very weak player playing with black. But you make moves in opening chess. When you make one move, then second move, you have to have an idea. You have to have a plan. And rook d8 with knight h5 doesn't seem like it's a part of the same plan. It seems like it's two moves for completely different plans, but in fact, it is a very powerful idea. After knight e2, knight b4, queen d2, knight a6. It's a well calculated and well aimed positional idea that works just fine. And this is why I say that when you play accelerated Draken, you get very rich positions. And I don't think any other opening can give black so much opportunity to improve and come up with new ideas. Of course, for every good idea that you invent in almost any opening, there are 5 or 6 bad ideas. So, and after you count them out, these bad ideas, this is one idea that stands out and really proves that black has sufficient counterplay. So I'm very proud to introduce this very good positional idea. I don't think it was ever played because this original idea, knight b4 and knight a6, was entirely introduced by Rivka and proved to be very stable. Now I want to introduce you to a little deeper development of one particular variation on the way to play accelerated Draken. It's not accelerated Draken if white takes with a queen. We go knight f6. We have covered that more or less, but I show you some very interesting new developments. Queen a4, knight d5, queen e4, knight b6, which is by far the best move. There is knight c7, knight b4, opportunities, and they're simply not that good for black. Knight b6 is the best move. And here, something that is not new, bishop f4 is not good. After bishop f4, black has an advantage because black plays d5, and after ed, bishop f5, and on queen e2, knight d5, and getting tremendous initiative. Now, on any type of DE, bishop takes e7, and I don't really want to spend too much time on it because white is simply busted here. So this is not the way to play for white. And bishop f4, well, after d5, if you go to e2, then black has perfect development, and bishop g4 later simply has an advantage. So let's concentrate on the best move, which is knight c3. And this is not new. d5, this pawn on d6 has to be taken en passant. And because, well, and again on queen e2 we're going to go bishop g4, and pawn on e5 becomes very weak. This is old news, and e takes d, we go bishop f5 anyway, and now queen h4. Now, we have this considered to be a little better for white. And I wanna refute this evaluation and refute the variation that says that white has an advantage. After queen h4, we play queen takes d6, and the only way white can play for advantage is by the move knight b5. Well, on knight b5, we have two serious continuations for black, and I think they are equally good. I would have a problem choosing one continuation, knowing the final position of each one. So let's look at queen b4, check, and the other queen d7, as I mentioned. So c3, suppose c3. The main continuation is queen takes b4. After c3, it's hard for white to count on something, on some advantage. We just castle, take, and on bishop e3, knight d5, simply giving better position to black. After bishop takes a7, we go b6, and on rook d1, e6. So this is not serious for black. And this is checked on Rybka with further concrete variations. It's simply bad for white. So we don't want to concentrate on that, and we quickly skip it and look at the best move, which is queen takes b4, which this evaluation that white has an advantage based on queen takes b4 variation. And that's what I want to develop, and that's what I want to contest. Now, queen takes b4, well, of course, when I say I, it means us, me and Rybka. Knight takes b4, knight c7 check, king d7. White has to go for this concrete variation if they want to try something. There is no good way to protect c2 pawn, so knight c7 check, king d7, knight takes a8, knight takes c2, and king d1. Now we play knight takes a8. So we are exchange down, we are hoping to win exchange back, because on rook b1 we could play simply knight e3 check, and white has a chance for playing for initiative. Now after knight takes a8, knight e5 check, and on king e6, bishop f4. Very powerful idea of bishop c4 check. Now it looks like black in severe trouble here. On g5, bishop check, and on king f6, bishop d2. And if king takes e5, this is bad position for black. Or is it? This position actually, with further play, I came to the conclusion it's very unclear who has an advantage here. So, is white better here or not? It's still to be analyzed. But here, what I would like to suggest. It's a great opportunity for any player, well, up to the very top of the world, to analyze some positions of the opening, to understand it well, and to really absorb all pluses and minuses of the position to have a good understanding of it. So I'm going to leave you right here, well, after knight takes a1, to see if the position is very credible for black. If you like it, you will play it. Position is very messy. So this is up to you to play this position or not, because this is very off-balance position. If you decide, well, that's not the kind of position you want to get, what I would recommend, then you go and stick to queen d7 variation. On knight b5, then you should play queen d7 variation. This will guarantee you very stable and playable position. The other one is more for very sharp players who like these complications. And I still don't know which one of these two continuations are better, but I can guarantee you they are both very playable. For example, bishop e3, we go bishop g7, and rook d1, we go queen c8. Now white has to guard their b2 pawn, and if they go c3, we simply go a6, and after knight d4, we can go knight d5, and Ripka gives slight advantage to white, but then she changes its mind. In my opinion, black is perfectly okay here. Knight takes f5, queen takes f5, and what do you want for black when you're playing black? You have very nice development, well-placed pieces, and you are about to castle. This is very safe and credible way to play for black. And again, to summarize this, I can tell you that in this position, we have two opportunities. Queen b4, which gets us to chaotic position, and it's entirely up to you to go for it or not. But if we didn't have second option, then I would say then we have to analyze this to the very end and see if this is good for black. If not, we cannot play this variation. But since we have an option of playing queen d7, I would say it's perfectly okay to play it up to this point where you make decision. You want to play queen d7 or queen b4. So that's the summary of the latest developments in the opening repertoire that's suggested by me. Some of the variations are very interesting and very sharp. Some of them are quiet, but they are all new and they are, in my opinion, very, very valuable. So thank you very much.